Hi everyone, my name is Max Shellenbergar, and today I'm going to be talking about particular challenges for transgender college students. So, they experience problems that disrupt success in college. So, I'm going to be talking about how society really impacts their lives, what it's like in the classroom for trans students, the campus life with trans students, what's the impact of power of positive reinforcement, the importance of queer art and representation, and the future of trans lives in our society. So this is kind of an overview. I use this for my thesis. This project analyzes articles and interviews to identify the factors that limit trans success, including social stigmas in schools, difficulty receiving hormonal treatment, hardships in the classroom, and challenges in pursuing gender reassignment. So these are all the kind of broad topics that I wanted to be talking about specifically with college trans students. So, society's impact on trans lives. Many trans youth struggle to embrace gender identity in school. So, when you're younger and you're figuring yourself out, it can be really difficult for you to open up yourself and really proclaim who you are. And because you're afraid of bullies and you're afraid of, how the classroom is going to change, especially growing up in elementary school or middle school or high school where you're really learning about yourself. And systematic discrimination and employment inequality. There are many ways where you can be just dismissed from a job because of your identity, of your gender identity. Denied housing services is the same reason. Discrimination from healthcare providers. It can be really difficult for you to get the healthcare you need based on your gender identity. And even going forward in our society, LGBTQ overall, it's really changing how you can get your healthcare. And oppression from local authorities. There are many times where it's this implicit bias that is gained for over time from society that trans people are just a joke, that they're not real, they're delusional, they're sick, they're all these type of things that really develop and how it impacts trans college students. And it really impacts the psychological wellness of trans people because they feel like they're attacked. They can't go into the bathroom that they feel aligned with when they feel as a trans male, someone who was born female and transitioned as a male, you can get really ostracized for that. You can be really attacked for your identity. Say, what is this person doing here? And that's not really fair. And aggression from neighbors and others, rejection, your own families, especially when you're young and you're telling your parents, hey, I'm a boy instead of a girl, or I'm a girl instead of a boy, or I'm neither, I'm non-binary, I agender. There are all these different identities, and when you don't have that same connection with your family, you don't have that same, validation from your family, you're more likely to suffer in the education system, specifically in college. So trans students in the classroom, they really want to be out in the classroom, and it depends on very different things: university climate, course content, and classroom size. So if you're in a university like Cal Poly, where you see all of these resources available, you have the Pride Center, and you have many postings. This is a gender inclusive bathroom. This is an all gender bathroom. This is, a space where there's a lot of allies, and thankfully we're in a space where there are a lot of accepting people. But there can be other universities, that are more conservative that can be really difficult for trans people to live in. And you want to be able to get the best education. Even that could be the best college in your field, but you don't want to go there because of their, their bias around trans people or their restrictions for trans people. And course content can also play a big matter. It's a big difference when you're going into, a very male dominated or a very closer, traditionally closed off class compared to like a gender studies class or a psychology class about gender. Things where you feel that your experience is validating, that you feel your experience means something in that classroom. And classroom size, a lot of the trans people, her name is Amy, and this came from Z Nicolazzo's article. He explained that she felt small group discussions allowed her to have just a 3 or 4 people who were able to talk to. And, like, I'm comfortable with these people. I can talk about how my experience is necessary and my experience is needed talking to. Something that, a large, 100-person classroom, they're not going to want to talk about that kind of stuff. It doesn't feel comfortable to open up to all 150 people at once, all 100 people at once, whatever the class size may be. It's a much more difficult, and but small group discussion classrooms can be a big part of it and a big help. So that's how they feel in the classroom currently. And now we're going to look at some of the impacts of the classroom and the college climate all around. So a big part of college campuses, we all see them, during Greek week, is fraternities and sororities and what they mean to campus. It's a big part. It's a great way to get involved. It's a big part of getting involved. It's a some universities has a much bigger Greek life, and other universities is much smaller. But either way, gay men are slowly being more accepted. They're slowly being able to be a part of Greek life without too much scrutiny. That's because there's still a masculine man. There's still a male being with other males. It's not like there's this hyper feminine, you know, man in the realm of all these masculine men, all these traditional binary, historically straight masculine men. But while gay men are accepted, gender nonconforming people, they're going to be struggling because there's an article that it's called The Constellations of Being Transunited. And there's a specific bigender individual who talks about this experience. Sometimes when they have this gender fluidity, they're going to wake up like, I can be that masculine man my fraternity wants me to be. But if there's a formal event, and all the men are dressing in suits, and that bigender individual is saying, well, I'm feel more feminine today. I am a she female today. That is a part of my gender identity, that gender fluidity I have, and I want to wear a dress. But it's a big deal for this fraternity to have this event and have that one bigender individual to have a dress. So the fraternity brothers are saying, no man, come on, like, no man, come on. As you can see, that's the pronouns. Let's just we're all wearing suits. Let's just wear the suit. That can be really, really hurtful, for that individual. Really difficult to cope with. Culture centers, the intersectionality of race and gender can be very difficult because a black cultural center, there were these two female trans women who went into the Black Cultural Center. Their names are Micah and Sylvia. They go to the University of Georgia. This is also from the Constellations article. And they explained that they avoided the Black Cultural Center. Even though that was also part of their racial identity, they avoided it because it they didn't feel open to talk about trans issues. They didn't feel open to talk about these other issues they're having while being trans and black. They could only talk about the black issue, their issues being black on campus and the struggles they face being black, when really they're intertwined. They're, being black and trans, because they're facing much more scrutiny, much more hate crimes, much more of that, you know, hurtfulness, being colored and trans, being black and trans, being a person of color and trans. So it's important for transgender people who also are white to support trans people who are people of color, because it's very, very difficult in each circumstance, but they still have that white privilege. And it's very difficult for culture centers to be dismissive of trans people. It's important to remember that intersectionality of race and gender and support both. Otherwise, it's going to lead to struggles in the classroom and struggles on college campuses, which diminishes from leadership opportunities and milestones that we receive, from cis people, as people who don't have to go through the same particular challenges that trans people face. So now, because they were facing these struggles, how to be an ally is the power of positive reinforcement. It really boosts confidence and allows for them to experience the same milestones that we do, allows them to really feel the same power of being a college student, to feel the same successes. Inclusive applications, having that extra box that says non-binary, that says trans man, trans woman, agender, other, fill in your own. Because, for instance, a article by Pryor, he states that they were really struggling to have that application without it. So they had to contact the registrar department. And they said, hi, I notice you have only male and female. that identify as non-binary, and that's really difficult for me to choose. Is there any way that I can avoid this topic? And they said, I'm sorry, but it's really, really important that we have male or female. It's a big part of our application process. Otherwise, you can't be admitted. And that's a big struggle, and they recommended, why don't you just put male or female, just put one. But as you can imagine, it's really struggling because I couldn't imagine if my race was excluded to want to just give up my race. That's a part of who I am, and I imagine for that person it was also very difficult. Thankfully, they contacted the director of admissions and they had a personal talk and a personal interview where they were able to complete all the forms related to gender, such as housing and scholarships and things like that, that were part of the admission process, without having to just put male or just put female. And it was really rewarding for that person, and they definitely felt a greater success because of it. College events, like for instance, Greek life, being inclusive of trans people, saying, hey, we invite trans men to join our fraternity or sorority or, other forms of college events. And professors play a big role in the mentorship. LGBT people, if they're out in the classroom, they're more likely to receive that mentorship, receive that help, and that creates a huge opportunity. I know for me, got huge opportunities when I was able to speak out about the importance of gay rights and the gay experience on college campus, where I got to be a part of the liberal studies department. So it's a really, really big deal for professors to be open to that kind of mentorship and be open to the classroom, that we are 100% inclusive in here, and it's non-tolerable to make jokes about trans people, jokes about gay people, jokes about black people, jokes about Asian people. It's just not okay, and it's really important to reinforce the validity of someone's gender. So now I want to talk about the importance of queer art and representation. So showcasing trans people as beautiful is really important. I know that been a greater change, especially in like the models department, but it's not huge. I know Carmen Carrera, she's a trans model, and she will turn down jobs that don't accept other trans women or trans women of color. And it's really important, to showcase this kind of art. Like, this is a non-binary individual picture by Guido Castagnoli that was really beautiful. I touched on bodies that matter in my paper, and the importance of trans art and fashion and people, and how it showcases their experience and allows other trans youth to be beautiful and to feel comfortable in their skin, because it's a huge part of identity and confidence, is feeling comfortable in your skin and seeing other people being confident in their skin. But not only representing in the facet of art, not, but also as teachers and lawyers and doctors, to show trans students, college students, I can aspire to be this, no matter the systemic discrimination, because I can see that trans person being a doctor and a lawyer and a professor and receiving a bachelor's degree and a master's and a doctorate. It really changes the scope of possibilities when you see someone else succeeding in the same way that you succeed. So the future of trans lives. Currently, there is definitely a gaining in momentum through pop culture, RuPaul's Drag Race, and Pose and other really great inclusive programs that show kids that have importance of being allies. They fall in love with these stars, and the stars are saying, hey, I support trans rights, show to you. So it's creating this trickling effect of the celebrity is trans ally, I'm going to become a trans ally because I adore them. So that's a great thing. However, in the political battle in our current administration, it's really suffering because, Trump um, just banned the trans military from being recruited. And in 2010, just 9 years ago, was the Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. So it's already being regressive to our society. If trans people are banned, who is going to be able to be that extra fighter, that extra soldier, extra engineer that's going to make a difference because they're wanting to fight as well? Um, and the attempt to control changing gender on ID, they want to limit people. If this is how your chromosomes align, then this is what your ID is going to align. And that's not fair, because for intersex people, if they are born intersex, their male genitalia are removed in order to create an easier experience according to the doctor and the parents. But they have the male chromosomes. Do they have to have male on their ID as long as, they're alive? But they are have lived their whole lives as female and they identify now as female, but they have those chromosomes. So that's a really big flaw in the argument for the trans administration or the Trump, excuse me, the Trump administration. So yeah, so it's important to be politically active and showcasing allies. Trans people are a big minority in our society, and it's important for all of us to come together and really help change the pathways for more trans people to go into college and feel comfortable, find the same success that we do as college graduates, and be able to live lives beyond, sex workers where they feel put into and really change the future for trans youth. So, in conclusion, they're under fire in our society, and the allowance for a trans debate and making people feel like, well, this person says I'm invalid, maybe I am, is really regressive for equality, and it doesn't allow for, all people to feel successful because you may have a cousin or a friend or a personal close family member or a colleague who's struggling with this, who is really trying to overcome these barriers when it comes to their identity. And they may not feel, you know what, maybe I'm not good enough because I'm seen as a monster and I'm seen as inadequate because of their gender identity. And that's not okay. And so it's very important for colleges to protect their trans students. The importance of the Clarity Act and Title IX to really, really diminish and stop college students, or any people from attacking or harming trans college students. Because it's a very big environment and it's very, very scary to be judged by all these type of people just because of the way you look, dress, your gender, your anything like that. It's you don't want to be judged, so why put judge onto others? That's it for my presentation, and I really hope all of you try to become a trans ally and that this helps you have the resources to teach others about the importance of being a trans ally. Thank you so much.